Okay, today I'm going to be sharing my absolute favorite chocolate cake recipe of all time. It's rich, slightly fudgy, and is topped with the most incredible chocolate fudge frosting. Now, this recipe is an updated version of my original rich chocolate cake recipe, so it just has a few minor adjustments based on your feedback, which just makes the cake layers a little sturdier, but it still has the same incredible flavor and texture. Now, to start off, you want to preheat your oven to 180°C or 350°F conventional. Remember to lower the temperature if you're using a convection oven with a fan, and grease 2 8-inch cake tins. I'm using my homemade cake release to grease my tins, and then you also want to line the bottoms of the pans as well. This cake is super rich and fudgy, so it does tend to stick to the bottom, so don't skip lining the bottoms. Now you just want to pop these cake tins aside for now, and next we're going to sift together our dry ingredients. So I've got 210 grams or 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 50 grams or half a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of salt. And then using a whisk or fork, give that a good mix until it's well combined and set it aside for now. Now next, in a large mixing bowl, you want to add in 170 grams or 3/4 cup of unsalted butter and 200 grams or 1 1/4 cups of good quality dark chocolate. I like to use 50% dark chocolate, but any semi-sweet chocolate will work. And then you just want to melt that in the microwave for 30-second bursts at a time, giving it a mix in between each burst until everything is melted and smooth. Be careful not to overheat the chocolate though, so you just want to keep checking on it, and as soon as it's all melted, you want to stop there. You can do this over a stovetop too on a low heat if you prefer. Now once that's nice and smooth, then next you want to add in 80 grams or 1/3 cup of cold milk. This is just going to help lower the temperature of the chocolate mixture, and then just mix that in with a whisk until it's well combined. Okay, now next you want to add in 300 grams or 1½ cups of white granulated sugar, 1½ tablespoons of instant coffee powder, 70 grams or 1/3 cup of unflavoured vegetable oil. I like to use canola oil, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract or essence, and 3 large room temperature eggs. And then using a whisk, mix that in until it's well combined. Okay, now once that is very well combined, then next you want to add in your pre-sifted dry ingredients from earlier and mix that in until it's well combined. Avoid over mixing though, so just mix until it's nice and smooth, and then to finish off, add in 110 grams or half a cup of very hot water. And then again, mix that in until the mixture is nice and smooth, but avoid over mixing it. So just mix until, it's nice and smooth. Okay, so that is the batter all done. It smells so good. And now you just want to evenly distribute this into our 2 pre-prepared cake tins. I like to weigh my cake tins just to make sure that the batter is evenly distributed, and then you just want to drop the cake tins lightly on the counter to remove any large air bubbles. And now these are going to go into the oven for 38 to 40 minutes, or until a toothpick comes out clean or with a few moist crumbs on it. Now because these cakes are quite fudgy and they do just need a little bit of time to set in the oven, do not check them too early, otherwise the cold rush of air into the oven can cause the cakes to collapse and sink. So you want to allow at least 3/4 of the cooking time to pass before you go ahead and check the cakes if you feel like you need to check them a bit earlier than the stated cooking time. So my cakes are out of the oven now. They smell so wonderful and chocolatey. They've been cooling in the cake tins for about 20 minutes just to allow them to firm up a little. And now I'm just running a thin knife around the edges to release the cakes from the cake tins and turning them out onto a wire rack to completely cool. These cake layers are so incredibly soft and moist and just full of rich chocolate flavor. Now I know that there are quite a lot of you out there who absolutely adore the original version of this chocolate cake recipe, so I will still be keeping the original version in the notes section of the recipe card on my blog. However, I just want to assure you that this updated version is, in my opinion, even better than the original. All I've done is just add a little bit more extra structure to them, just to help those of you who were having issues with the cake slightly sinking in the middle. So hopefully that extra structure should help, and it's still got the same great taste and texture. Now while these cakes are cooling, we're going to go ahead and make a super delicious chocolate fudge frosting. It is literally one of the best frostings out there, so you don't want to skip it. So you just want to place a large saucepan over a medium heat and add in 226 grams or 1 cup of whipping or heavy cream and heat that up until you start to see little bubbles forming around the edges. You don't want the cream to start boiling. Once it starts to gently bubble, turn down the heat to low and add in 400 grams or 2.5 cups of good quality dark chocolate. I'm using 50% dark chocolate, but any semi-sweet chocolate should work well. 226 grams or 1 cup of unsalted butter, 170 grams or 1 1/3 cups of powdered sugar, half a teaspoon of instant coffee powder, half a teaspoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract or essence. And then you just want to gently stir that until everything is melted and the mixture is nice and smooth. Now you may be tempted to turn up the heat if it's just taking a little too long, but just be patient with it and just keep it on a low heat because you don't want to burn the chocolate. And you don't want this to be, kind of hot or boiling. So as soon as everything is nice and melted, take it off the heat immediately. Okay, that is looking and smelling incredible. And now you just want to strain this mixture just to make sure that there aren't any little lumps in it. Now you just want to cover the top with some cling wrap, making sure that the cling wrap is touching the top of the frosting. And this is just going to prevent a skin from forming as it cools. And now this is going to go into the fridge to set for about 2 hours. So about 2 hours later, you can see that the frosting is nice and set. And when you run a spoon through it, it should be really nice and silky smooth. So my cake layers are completely cool now, so we can start frosting this cake. So to start off, I'm just going to trim the tops of my cake layers. They are already quite flat, but I'm just going to make them a little more flat. Next, I'm placing my first cake layer onto my cake stand and spreading out a generous amount of my fudge frosting on top using my offset spatula. Then my next cake layer goes on top of that, and again I'm just spreading out a generous amount of my fudge frosting on the top of the cake, and then I'm also covering the sides as well. Now I'm just using my cake scraper to smooth out the sides, and then I'm also using my offset spatula to bring that top lip of frosting into the middle of the cake so that I have some nice smooth edges. Now to finish off, I'm just popping my remaining frosting into a piping bag with a 1M star piping tip on it, and just piping some little cupcake swirls on the top. And then that is my chocolate cake all done. This cake is honestly so incredibly delicious. It's probably one of my favorite cakes. It has such a rich chocolate flavor, and the chocolate fudge frosting just takes that chocolate flavor to another level. I literally just cannot describe how incredibly good this chocolate cake is. It's just so rich and moist and fudgy and just like full of chocolate flavor. I would honestly go so far as to say that this is probably the best chocolate cake I've ever had. I said it, and that's quite a big statement to make. So if you're a chocolate cake lover, you absolutely have to give this chocolate cake a go. So that is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do decide to give this chocolate cake a go, then please do leave a review on my blog. It really helps my content out, and I absolutely love hearing from you guys. I'll see you in the next video.